Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and I'm joined, as always, by the fabulous and fun Anne Pinkava. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Didn't know you were so fantastic, did you?
I didn't know it was fabulous and fun, but
And fantastic. It's the F words.
well,
it's better than some of them you could be, I guess.
that's very true.
This episode is brought to you by coffee. It is crack of dawn here in New York and not in Romania. And so therefore, brought to you by coffee and the wonderful and fantastic, the flirty and fun Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. We have a new giveaway because it's August now, and you can enter to win by commenting on the videos the DK Sock Patriot Bouquet. So this is something that you can get in her store, I think still, or you can win it here. And we're giving away another copy of Odyssey Tale by Cody Schlegel, but this month we're doing it a tiny bit different. You can get a copy like this, or if you are more of an audiobook person like I am, we are going to give away a code for a digital copy of his book. So you guys can enter to win by commenting on the video. Comment on the video down below, and we'll pick a winner at the end of the month. And then if you can't wait to get your Chicken Lady yarn, it's so beautiful. You probably don't want to wait, honestly. You can use the code PIK Hot as Heck 20 to get 20% off her beautiful yarns like Blueberries, which is my mom knit up in this Close to You shawl, which is just absolutely gorgeous. My mom's one of those knitters who doesn't look at her knitting most of the time. Just like if she has to do something special, she'll look at it. She said, but the color changes were so pretty in this yarn that she found herself watching it just to see how the colors played around in there. And so if you want to have an enjoyable knitting experience like that, highly recommend Chicken Lady. So there's that. And then I guess I'll show you the list.
Check out her newsletter too.
Oh yeah. Her newsletter has some cool things. There's some sales in there. So very important.
Special discount codes. And you can find that on her website.
Yeah. And to top it all off, she doesn't spam you. She sends like 2 a month and then sometimes an extra one if something special is going on. And honestly, I don't know about you, but if somebody is sending me a special code, I don't care. I actually had to unsubscribe from, I got a planner for my kids for school, right? I had to unsubscribe to their email list because they sent me at least one every day, sometimes 2. And I'm like, I don't know if you guys know this. I bought a planner, so I'm not going to need another one until next year. Like, that's how this works.
Like, call me in October.
Yeah. Or, if you're running a half off sale, I do want to know about that, because if I've used the planner for a few months and I like it, I would probably buy another one for half price. But I don't need you sending me something every single day. That makes me hate you, no matter how great your planner is.
So point being, Chicken Lady does not do that.
Yes, that was the entire point, is my long story about how if you hate that, she won't do it to you and you'll enjoy her newsletter. And sometimes she gives you like sneak peeks of colorways and things. And who doesn't like to be like the first to know? I mean, I do. But before I give Anne the floor, I'm just going to show you guys. I'm working on a new design. It's a hat, obviously. And if you look at it this way, it's like mostly stockinette with a little V. And if you look at it this way, it's mostly 1x1 ribbing with the V ending way up here. It's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, and it's a little bit too thick. So I'm probably going to rework it. This was a 6 yarn. And so when you put it on, because of how thick the yarn is, it doesn't even give you like that slouch look. It just kind of sticks out the back because it's a little too rigid. Right. So it's going to be reworked, but this is something I'm working on. And it's kind of depending on the yarn, it could be for anybody. It doesn't have to be a girl. It doesn't have to be a boy. You could, the next one I'm going to do is actually going to be in stripes. I've got this, this yarn that I thought was really pretty, and it's a 5. So, we're going to see what happens with that, but that's what I was working on outside of a lot of life stuff I've had going on lately. But I know Anne has been over there knitting her little heart out. So what do you have?
I have. Here, I'm going to show off my stocking first, even though it's not properly done, but I wanted to kind of, before I sew it together, show it off. So I have here, because it's not sewn, it kind of looks like a mess. Anyways, so I have this Loki Christmas stocking that I said I've been making them to sell. I've just made one of them so far, but I have made and sold these in the past. And then here, the cuff on this, because here, it's hard to see because it's black, but that it is a folded down cuff with the little, there we go. So the edge is kind of like that. And then the bottom edge will be tacked down and over. Anyways, whatever. It's going to look great. Gonna be ruffles up and down. But yeah, so that is what I've been working on. I've also been working on a pair of gloves. So sorry. You know, when I said last week that this pattern is kind of fiddly, it's stuff like this that I'm like, oh yeah, I did a, yeah, it says Loki. It's exciting. It's got these little helmets on it.
It's super cute. And I assume those helmets are some Loki thing, right? I don't actually know.
Right. That they are here. Let me. They're little horned helmets going up and down.
Cool.
So yeah.
That's fun.
It's been good. Yeah. So I don't know. It's this. Now I kind of realized that it is into August. I will be going home soon. I have made no money. So quick, get all my production knitting done.
Gotta do what you gotta do, man.
I do. And also, so I showed these off a little bit on our Tuesday show. And I think I showed them off before too, but whatever. Anyways, these are the His and Hers gloves by Fingertips Patterns on Etsy. And well, you can tell that the fingers stick out. When they're like this, it's thin and kind of alien-like, which is pretty funny. But they stretch out a lot. And yeah. So yeah, they're very nice. And it's Chicken Lady yarn, the FAAFO colorway. It is a lot of fun. And you can kind of see so that there's, you know, stripes of where it's really subtle pooling too. It's nothing too crazy where there's, you know, stripes of where it's a little more yellowish and then there's the little blue parts. But around the palm especially, that there's, you know, when you're doing this gusset, that the kind of the direction changes. You can see that it's just very subtle. And then it's more, you know, that there's a little bit of dark and a little bit of light and there's blue on the inside of the thumb. Anyways, it was a lot of fun to, the same thing like your mom said, with it was just fun to knit and see the colors as they come around.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I really, really am not a fan of pooling. I know some people really like it when their colors do, but that kind of subtle pooling is really nice. It's not the kind of pooling that like takes away from your project because that's all you see. And it's
right. And normally when, you know, sometimes when something is pooling and the pooling doesn't match from one part of the project to another, and you can see it and you're like, but this, it's like, I mean, that, like I said, there are kind of pooling sections, but you're not looking at the cuff being different from the fingers.
Right.
You know,
there's a pattern. I don't remember who it was by or whatever, but I was noticing that it was like this beautiful dress pattern. And there were sections that were knit flat and there were huge pools. And then on the bottom, it was almost like stripes. And I could have never, ever, I don't know how that person knit it that way because it would have made me absolutely insane just having a big pool on my stomach. Like, I don't need more attention brought to that part of me. Thanks very much. Small stripes would be good right there.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, totally. And so I have the other glove almost finished and I'm just working on the thumb and I'm playing a little bit of yarn chicken. I have another ball of this, so it's not as if, you know, it'll be everything except the tip of my thumb. But still, I want to see how far I can go.
Yeah, it's always fun to see like how much you can eke out. When my mom was working on her Close to You shawl, she showed me how much she had left. She's like, am I going to have enough to do all my decreases? I'm like, absolutely. And she actually still has enough left that I can probably like use the scraps as like a contrast color in a color work pattern. Like it was more than you thought, but it's always fun to kind of see what's going on.
Right. And I don't know this too. So here, I won't knit on it right now. I'm trying to bring it back. So the finger decrease for this. So you notice how the fingers are, that's the problem with knit gloves. That in mittens, your fingers are together. In gloves, they're kind of, I mean, they're separated, of course, but they can be a little bulky when they're separated when you knit your own gloves, you know? And there's no decrease from throughout the middle section until the very tip. So they're like, oh yeah, just go down a needle size. It's like, I'm on size 2 needles on DK yarn right now. And it's like going down to size 1 needles. And I did it throughout. I really don't see a difference. I think at some point it's as tight as the yarn will go.
You know, I don't know. Is it possible that you can only knit so tight with some yarns? I mean, it must be, right? It's how thick it is.
Right. I mean, there might be the slightest bit of difference, but I changed needles about 10 stitches in, and really, like, I can't tell. I did it. I followed instructions. No clue.
Yeah. I got to tell you, though, I am so impressed with those gloves. I know that putting the fingertips on them is the hard part, and you're just like cruising right along. That's where mine was stopped. I would have knit up to here and I've been like, I'm done. I'm tapping out.
Right. And I do everything, almost everything 2 at a time too. So doing them 1 at a time. And I like wrote like the pattern. It's a really great pattern. Check it out. Like I said, by Fingertip Patterns on Etsy, his and hers gloves. They're great. But it'll say like, you know, knit until almost the end of the index finger. So I sat there and I put a stitch marker in each time, and I have a little diagram that I drew out on paper. It's like, okay, this finger is going to be this many stitches, and this finger is going to be this many stitches, to make sure that I'm not arbitrary and like they're mismatched or something. So
yeah, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of a project and realizing that like you made your middle finger like half an inch longer than this middle finger, and like that's the best way to ruin a project, honestly.
Right. And I was, you know, kind of not obsessing over it, but I was, you know, putting the glove on and be like, okay, is this really long enough? Is this really too short? Is this really the right measurement? Because, you know, if it's too short, you don't want your finger kind of stressing against the glove. At the same time, if it's too long, you don't want to be sitting there with goofy fingers and not very dexterous, you know, that whole thing.
It's a fine line between like perfect and like awful, and there's not a lot of in between.
Right. So, and hopefully they're good. I mean, they feel like warm gloves, so hopefully they're not just cutting off circulation. So that would be miserable.
That would be miserable.
But I have a feeling that if I ever make snowballs, they'll exactly know it was me, because I had they'll have little ridges on them as I pat them. So
that's funny. Are you often in snowball fights that you have to worry about this?
No, but
you never know, right? I mean,
no, it could happen. I might feel the need to break in my new gloves in a fight of some sort. Snow, streets.
If you're ever in a street fight, I would pay money for that, because I just don't see it.
Yeah, probably not, but that would leave a ridge on your face too. It'd be great.
All right.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Evolved here, so let's move on.
Always leave the opportunity open.
True story. So I think that that's all of the fun and frivolous things we have going on today.
Pretty much.
I think Anne said that she's got some updates on some things that were happening in England. So let's do that. And then I got a couple of things need to be talked about.
Right. We have more American news this week. But just to say that that we mentioned last week, the guy in England who was arrested over the meme, that he was, so it's DJ Brady, who is the guy who posted the meme, was arrested, and Harry Miller of the Bad Law Project, who was arrested with him for obstructing an officer's arrest or whatever. He was there and
some dumb thing that wasn't actually true, but yeah, okay.
Right. But anyway, so he was also arrested. But they were both released without charge. So that's good. The Bad Law Project that Harry Miller has, that he's pursuing incidents like this to, help people out in England. So that's good. So they're getting work in there. So that's the good news. The kind of bad news is we also talked about in Oldham in England, how it was, of the very many quote Asian grooming gang reports in England, child rape gang, just make it clear. But in Oldham, so there had been this story of, this girl who had been brutally raped by 8 different men in a day. And her real name is Samantha, and that's not Samantha Smith from Telford. This is a different Samantha. And she was there at the city council meeting, and many of the people in attendance at the city council meeting, including her mother, got ASBOs, which are little police write-ups for antisocial behavior. And they accused her mother of yelling obscenities and for banging on a barrier or for throwing a missile. And these were all written in the court. Okay, first off, I think that may be justified. But secondly, that did not happen. That did not happen at all.
If your child has been assaulted by that many people, I think that most anything is acceptable. But two,
in a day after she went to the police office and the desk sergeant said, "Go home, you're drunk," and did not address the problem. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that response from a mother, again, would be acceptable, but also it didn't happen. So, anyways, mother, her name's Debbie. She was on Stein's show and they did a little report. But because of this, she has been getting threatened for showing up at that meeting with her daughter, and that she was not at home, that she was in another location, and somebody sent her a threatening message saying, I know where you are, basically, and she's had to move locations again. And again, though the 8 men involved, okay, so 2 of them have actually been arrested and served some form of time. It wasn't long, but they were. Another one, his wife turned him into the police and said that he admitted to doing this and he tried to kill her. Okay. And that has not been addressed. And there was another guy, I believe, was detained and he ran. And as those of you doing math at home, that's not all of them. Nothing else happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if your guy is gonna be a part of a group rape of a small person, then I wouldn't be surprised that he tried to kill you. But man, that wife tried to do the right thing, and then he totally how messed up.
Right.
Real.
That, I mean, it's very much a who's in charge here? Who are people really afraid of? Because it's
not the police. I don't think those ASPOs really mean anything. And I think we mentioned it with Neil the other day on our Tuesday Live, which if you guys haven't watched, we are starting to do a Tuesday show every other week right now. When Anne gets back to the US, it might change. But right now it's every other week at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. Our next one will be 15th, whatever that day is that's in the teens. But I asked Neil about the hate crimes and 16. Stuff. 16th. I was so close.
There we go.
But on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, I asked Neil about it, and he there's one cop that was like, yeah, we don't do any sort of policing anymore because we're just like investigating these like they hurt my feelings claims, and it's ridiculous. So who knows, maybe they'll start to actually watch out for the people again, but right now it seems pretty hopeless.
Yeah, seriously. Well, but part of the thing is too that, I mean, people, every overnight success is 10 years in the making, and that's true in the business world, but it's like, it takes, as miserable and awful as it is, sometimes it takes a lot of time to get stuff done. When do things get done? When people are actually angry about it and want to do something. Is it awful and miserable that it's taken this long for people to get angry about it and do something? Yes. But with so many eyes on it, it becomes more and more difficult to ignore. So,
right.
I mean, that's not great.
It's not great, but at least it's better. I mean, it could just be going on in the dark still, and then that would be even worse.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the English news. You had American news that you wanted to get to today.
Well, before we get to American news, though, we're going to take a stop in Russia, because I'm pretty sure you guys probably have heard that Brittany Griner was, that she was sentenced yesterday. And people, I'm sure a lot of people are flipping out about it, but the reason I decided to look into it is because some of our well-known liberal knitters have been posting like hashtag free Brittany Griner. And I'm like, okay, so what's going on with this? And so I went and did my due diligence as opposed to just following a hashtag. And so what happened is that Brittany was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison for weed possession. And they said that she was guilty of possession, smuggling, and that she committed the crime deliberately. That may not be true. From what I understand, she had like a vape that had like a residue in it.
Right.
Why did you bring the vape if there's severe gun laws, if there's severe drug laws in the country? But I'm not blaming her. I'm just asking a question. But so everybody's, oh, free Britney, free Britney. So the reason that they had
the free Britney hashtag hasn't been around for a while since, Britney Spears and her decade.
This is free Brittany Griner. That's the actual hashtag, but
yeah, you wouldn't want the two mixing.
But so the reason though that they had to sentence her and that they did a severe sentence and put these severe charges on her is because they want to trade her. And so they had to go through the motions of a trial, of a sentencing, because then it makes it seem like the guy who is referred to as the merchant of death, like it's a fair trade. So here you've sentenced her for drug possession and, planning to do it on purpose. And we're going to give you a guy who was like giving arms to people and killing lots of people, and totally a fair trade. But so I thought it was interesting because everybody's free Britney, and they are going to free her. Like that's the plan the White House has put out, that they want Britney and another gentleman, I don't remember his name, but that they're going to trade the two people for this merchant of death. And like I totally understand wanting to get American citizens back, but man, it's so disturbing that it's such a contrast between she had a little tiny bit of weed and this dude was like selling arms and killing people. But hey,
it really ain't the Trump administration, let me tell you, because first off, Trump did put a priority on getting our people out of situations like this, and not just obvious ones like Afghanistan, but different, different deals and military action. I remember specifically a woman who had been captured by ISIS and just brutally treated, and that it later found out that she had been captured all through the Obama administration and nothing had been done until Trump came in, and then it had it had turned out that she had died, and they named the mission to go after the people who had killed her after her as well, which was a nice thing for the family. But you know, do you think that Russia would have traded arms dealers for basketball players under Trump? Like, do you think Trump would have gone for that deal? Do you think that would have happened?
Yeah.
And also, I thought Russia was the great devil. Like, I'm not saying that Russia is doing great things or anything like that, but don't associate with Russia, don't look at Russia, don't buy Russian goods, don't talk to anyone who happens to be Russian. All of that seems to be melting fairly quickly if we are sending billions of dollars to the Ukraine, who Russia is fighting, and yet our American basketball players are playing games in Russia. That's a little weird. Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too that because Putin, part of the reason that this is going on and it's so high profile and everything is because he needs the propaganda, because people are starting to be a little disillusioned with him and all of the soldiers that have been lost or captured in Ukraine. And so this is a way for him to kind of show that he can take care of his people and he can get the Merchant of Death back from the US. And so it's a very, it's very calculating. It's very, here we've got Dementia Joe running the country and we're trying to deal with Putin, and it's just not even the same.
Right. It's kind of Putin just doing this sort of flick the nose of the US. Like, oh yeah, you can. What are you gonna do about it? Yep. Not that it's difficult with Biden in charge.
No, it sure isn't. But this kind of feeds into another point I had. So you guys probably heard that this week the US voted to bring Sweden and Finland into NATO, right? And everybody voted for it except Josh Hawley. And so I heard him talking about it, and he was talking about how, this doesn't make the US stronger. This actually just makes it so that if something happens in Sweden or Finland, we have to go help them. And that's not good for us, especially in the position we've been in lately. And then he was also pointing out that the whole Ukraine issue was kind of not that we caused it, but because there was talk of bringing Ukraine into NATO, that's a lot of what precipitated what's going on with the Ukraine and Russia. And so I cannot believe out of everybody, he's the only person who sees this. We've got Mitch McConnell, who's just a career politician like all the rest of them, and they're saying, oh, this is good for us, and this is
yes, the turtle is out there with my senator John Thune as his pathetic little lapdog. And like nothing like useless conflicts to really get the old money bags going.
Yeah, it's just I haven't been watching as much news as I should, but it's, I guess in the back of my mind, I always assumed that there was kind of like people who were like fighting for us, and to find out is one dude standing up by himself, that makes me kind of, I don't know, it's kind of disturbing, isn't it? A little bit.
It is. And also, this is not entirely my point, so a lot of it, that this is Stephen Crowder's point. I'm just going to repeat it because I think it bears repeating. But you have countries like Sweden and Finland who are like, oh, well, look at us. We have such a beautiful, lovely welfare state, and we have so many government programs, and we have all of this healthcare and all of this stuff. And it's like, you know why you can afford that? Because if anyone attacks you, America is going to roll up with daddy war bucks and save your behind. And that's what all of NATO is that was Trump coming in and saying, no, you actually have to pay your fair share for this. This is like oh, well, isn't this great? It's all this wartime alliance. Who's bankrolling it? Why can't you pay to defend yourselves? That's the entire point. It's like, it drives me insane. Like, for example, Italy has, This is just one of those little stories that you hear, that there was a kind of a slavery bust in Italy, that they're importing people to make Italians shoes. So you're like, oh, it's real Italian shoes. That's great. It's like, oh, well, it's slave kids. And in Italy, it's like, if you can be industrious enough to ship people in to make your shoes, surely you can make your own tanks. Like, and not that I want to encourage Italy specifically to make its own tanks, because we know how that goes. But like, you have all of these countries, it's like, surely you can make your own things if you put your mind to it. Oh no, well, it's dirty. Well, Germany, like, well, we couldn't possibly have all these coal plants. That wouldn't be green. Also, let's get our oil from Russia. That it's this out of sight, out of mind. It's green if we don't look at the, actual suffering it causes, the opposite of what environmentalism claims to be, that things are cleanest and best done and most humane in first world countries. But no, let's just shove those to the side. Let's just not look. Let's just, put a stamp on it from a government approved bureaucracy. And that means that it must be okay. And yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And all of these, NATO, like, woohoo, we're all going to protect ourselves and we're all in this together, they say, as it's the American taxpayers and it's the American kids who are fighting these wars, and it's American blood, and it's American working class actually go to work is paying for all of this. Or on the other hand, it's American debt for future generations and America debt enslavement to China. So in the end, we're paying for it anyways, even if it's a less direct thing.
Yeah, no, it is. Piggybacking off of your thing about how we're going to owe China, I started listening to a series of books called The Selection, and it might be a young adult book. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, except they're going in to be selected by the prince to be the next princess, kind of thing. And obviously the girl that is telling the story is going to win, because it wouldn't be any fun otherwise. But
third runner up. Guess I'll just go home.
Yeah, and every time she does something to make the king angry, the prince fights for her, and it's very predictable, but it's all right. Not the best thing I've ever read. But the books take place after there have been 4 world wars, and the 3rd World War was when the US became the United States of China. And I just listened to this and I'm going, this isn't that far off. Like, it's a little bit scary how this is probably not as fake as the author intended when she was writing it.
It's kind of like, wasn't the one show Firefly that everyone loved, and it was only a season, but it's, humans in space, and they're all from Earth, and they're like doing space cowboy and smuggling things. But previously on Earth, the entire thing was taken over by China. So you can see that a lot of their stuff in their ship is Chinese, and when they swear, they'll swear in Chinese and some of their other phrases and words, because that's what it's been like, on Earth previously. It's like,
yeah,
nice.
I think that the fiction is getting a little too close for comfort, and I'm not a big fan.
Between that and, I mean, The Giver and every other dystopian madness that we're seeing.
Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to talk about that's a little bit farther from home is in Hungary, Orban is the prime minister, I believe, and the left is hating on him because he is a strong border, strong family, strong Christian person, and he is coming to speak at CPAC. Really? And the left have lost their minds about it, because heaven forbid that, we align ourselves to somebody who actually thinks that, countries should take care of themselves and protect their people. And he was using the example of Hungary shares a border with Ukraine, and they are obviously welcoming Ukrainian refugees into their country because they need a place to go. But then he was talking about how at their southern border, there are other people from other countries that are just trying to get in, and they're not letting them because that's not, that they need to protect their state. And because he has this viewpoint, other like news stations are like saying that he's like, oh, a purist and this and that. And CNN actually ran a story about him that that they were comparing him to Nazis because he says that these are our borders, this is our country, and we need to protect our country.
Which is funny because for kind of Nazism is really into, yes, this is our borders. And then it just pushes into your country. And these are our borders too. No, wait, hang on.
Yeah. But it's insane that because he has principles and morals and says, no, this isn't right, that they're like, oh, Nazi. No, I just want to protect my country from everybody else who's trying to get in and wreck the stuff we got going on. I don't know much about Hungary. I don't know much about like their politics and stuff, but at least that's good.
Yeah, but not to throw words around like fundamental, but isn't like the fundamental duty, if you're a head of a country, is to protect the citizens of the country and to promote their well-being. So he's out there saying, no, we're going to have strong borders. And I'm trying to remember, that there's a specific tax break for women in Hungary, that they're very much promoting having larger families because there's been a lot of demographic decline in Western nations for years now. And I believe it's if you have 3 children, I can't remember, it's like either income tax or property tax that you don't have it for the rest of your life if you have 3 kids. Wow. That it's a big tax break of, trying to promote people to, have kids.
Procreate. Keep their
like,
kids,
hey,
not kill them. Yeah, go figure.
Have those kiddos, have free, have tax breaks. It all works out.
Heaven forbid. But
yeah. It's like, tax breaks for working class families. Or not just working class. Anyone.
Unlike, Biden, who the new thing that they're pushing, if you look at the breakdown of it, people who make under 40,000 are going to pay $130 more. And then people who make up to 80,000 are going to pay X amount more. And then you get into the millionaires and all of a sudden they're like paying like $100. And it's like, but I thought that we were taxing those people more. How am I paying more than a millionaire? Just explain it to me. But whatever. But so all of these things going on in the rest of the world show that they don't have any idea of what's going on. The Democrats have no idea what is really happening, like what's important to people and different things. Pelosi's over in Taiwan. I'm surprised you're not exploding about that. She's over there saying, oh, we're not going to let China do. It's all crap. She has no idea what she's saying. The woman can't even string a sentence together. She's almost as bad as Biden.
I know. I don't know. It's really unclear to me what her intentions were in going in Taiwan and what that's all about, because that there was somebody who said like, yeah, well, the commentary is so weird because there was like a CNN commentary saying like, oh yeah, well, we want to preserve the status quo and also, not say that Taiwan is independent. I'm like, the status quo is that Taiwan is independent. Taiwan is its own nation. And also, if we want to continue to do business with Taiwan, it's not going to happen if the Chinese are in charge. So and many people know that most of the semiconductors in the world are made in Taiwan, that they are very strategically important. And they're not only strategically important from a manufacturing standpoint, but they're strategically important. And we have a treaty with Taiwan that we would protect them if China ever was to invade. And also that, with Taiwan, this little tiny island right off China's, shore, that is our world power status right there. And it's almost all gone already. Okay, with Afghanistan, with everyone else, with Biden in charge and the rampant stupidity and weakness displayed to everybody. But this is a promise that if we do not keep, it falls right there. And I'm not saying that there's, that horrible things can't happen and you can never recover from them, but that is highly significant. and Pelosi just sort of waltzing in, and China did a lot of posturing too, that they said that after that I wrote down, yeah, they had 30 jets in Taiwanese airspace, and they were threatening, and they had boats out and this and that and the other thing if Nancy Pelosi dared to come. But she did dare, she did her little thing and, went off to Korea. But yeah, so that it is that balance of, is it saying, no, you won't, China? Is it just exacerbating them further? Like, what's the play here? Because there was another one from the Biden administration saying that, oh, well, it was something about Taiwan, not being independent, and China and its one China policy that it said that's getting Taiwan back by the year. Well, is it or isn't it? It's bad.
It is bad. But I don't know. They just don't. I don't know. I just feel like all of these senile people have no idea what they're really doing, and they're all senile. And I know this doesn't apply to a lot of people, but here in New York, they have changed the lines of some districts. And what has happened is that the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side of New York City have finally become combined. And guess what? Jerry Nadler is in one, and then another person named Christine Maloney is in another. And you know what? They've been in there forever. Mm-hmm. They have been in there forever. And so there was a debate where the two of them were trying to talk about how great they've been. And they've both been in there for like 30 years or more. Nadler is 75, the woman is 76, and neither one of them could even string a sentence together. Nadler, well, they asked him, what is he proud of? What is he most proud of in all of his years of service? Do you know what it was? Impeaching George W. Bush twice. And for those of you following along at home, they didn't impeach George W. Bush ever. He was talking about Trump. Mm-hmm. But
on the treadmill of politics, and it's like, no, you didn't do that. Nope. But also Jerry Nadler is the guy who there is video, and it's like alleged, let's put a big allegedly over this, but body language doesn't lie, and it couldn't be anything else. Video of him crapping himself while Nancy Pelosi is talking. It is the funniest thing, because you can see the look of horror flit over his face as he like grabs the corner of the podium and does the awkward shuffle out of the room. It's amazing. Look it up if you have a chance. It's good stuff. No, it's anyways, Jerry Nadler. But it's like, yeah, I impeached Bush. No, it was Trump. No, you've been in here forever. And I don't know. And also, connecting with old guard Republicans, that Dick Cheney came out and said that Trump was a danger to democracy. And okay, so I've been into politics since I was a wee small lass. Okay, so I paid attention. I read the articles. I listened to the news. I've been pretty kept it together. And I remember Dick Cheney being our guy. Okay, the most conservative. Everyone hated him. He was awful. He was Darth Vader. He was the one everyone hates. And that's kind of the thing with people are saying with Trump and DeSantis. Okay, I like both of them. And people saying, oh, well, DeSantis isn't as, as hated as Trump. Okay, it doesn't matter who's going to be the Republican candidate. They are going to hate and destroy and make a misery of their life, whoever it is. So if that's how you're choosing people, just understand that whoever it is, they're going to be hated and turned unreasonable, and the full media is going to be against them. So whatever. Anyways, but yeah, I remember Dick Cheney was the strongest conservative, and George Bush, was the devil, and Cheney was the more conservative devil, and all of this going on. And I would just like to say how grateful I am that the needle has changed enough that Dick Cheney still is not our most conservative guy. Or Mitt Romney isn't the most conservative of Republican challengers in the field, which he was at one point. That since then we have had proper candidates. And Trump, I mean, you can go back and forth and say, well, Trump really isn't conservative. Doesn't matter. He acted conservatively, like not with debt, but in killing regulations and promoting industry at home and in foreign wars. Policy down the line. He did what all the other Republicans said they would and didn't. And that it's like, and yes, and now we're talking Trump or DeSantis, who are both very conservative candidates, and the Republican base with, you know, the Liz Cheneys of the world still thinking that they're the guy and they're, you know, Mr. Reasonable or Miss Reasonable, and they're just going to be out there and they're going to really appeal to the Republicans and the never Trump who are, you know, more moderate than thou. And I would never do anything like vote for a loudmouth who actually gets stuff done because I'm so principled. It's like, well, the principle is not the person, but the thing. Anyways, sorry, my mini rant. But that we have seen real conservatism and we have seen real Trump policies work, and we know it's possible. And a lot of people aren't settling for less now. And even with with voter, you know, Carrie Lake just came into Arizona, and we've had all of these Trump primary candidates who have won, and that, you know, that there's kind of whispers of voter fraud back and forth. It's like, oh, well, voter fraud, we can never work, the system will never work. No, it's the same thing. People are angry about it. People are looking at it, their eyes are on it. And you're like, oh, well, I heard of voter fraud and therefore voting doesn't matter. No, you heard of voter fraud. It didn't just happen and we had the results. You heard about it. It's coming out. And right. I think that is a very important mood shift or right. culture shift, or however you want to put it.
Yeah. And speaking of like the Trump type of or endorsed candidates, there's actually a woman in Michigan who won the primary to go against Whitmer. And her thing the whole time has been family, 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 and people are voting for her in droves. And so I think it's kind of showing that there's a shift in the Republican Party too, that more people are willing to say like, nah, I don't think that people want us to just be the status quo anymore. Like it got uncool to talk about family, and so people stopped doing it. But really, when push comes to shove, we're worried about, not that we're not worried about the whole world, but we're worried about our space, what's going to happen to our kids, what's going to happen in our town, and they've forgotten that. They've forgotten that we're people that are just trying to live lives. And, you know, we don't want to spend all our money in Ukraine, and we don't want, you know, teachers shoving the agenda down our kids' throats. And we're seeing more of that in the primaries.
But yeah, it's the building block of the American first foreign policy. Oh, does that just mean that we're just going to do what's best for us and screw you? Well, the point of America First is we assume that we're going to put America first and we're going to do what's best in America's best interest. And I assume that the other country, Germany, Italy, Botswana, it doesn't matter who, that they want to work what's in their best interest. And in past, like with NATO, that that America has been putting other countries first and paying money and not calling in the debts for everybody else. That America now just saying, hey, you made an agreement, follow it up or we're out. And that's best for everybody. So everything is fair across all the people. I assume what's best for me, you assume what's best for you. And then we come to make agreements fairly so that we're both get what we want, so we can come together well. And also with the pro-families first concept, that this is an old time Rush Limbaugh thing, that he would say that people would come up to, but it's an old time Rush Limbaugh thing where he would say that people would come up to him quietly. Again, the two so reasonable Republicans would be like, you have to do something about the pro-life people because they're killing us in the polls, that they're, because, they want pro-life candidates, that we can't win any elections because nobody wants that. And these are, rhino Republicans in liberal districts who wants to go to their cocktail parties. And it's like, oh, well, I might be pro-life, but then if I was pro-life, I wouldn't be cool with my friends. And that has been driving a lot of these rhino Republican politicians for a while. It's what fits in DC, not what fits in Oklahoma.
Right.
That, sort of think of the whole country sort of a thing. And I mean, that was, again, part of, gosh, I miss Rush, but that level of the base is more conservative than the candidates. And the base, to a certain extent, knows that, the more conservative the candidate, the better. And at least it's not, the super liberal candidate. But again, got to the point where, no, we're getting real conservatives in. We want real conservatives in. These people over there, they're crazy that we're actually getting in people like that. And it's the, oh, well, pro-life doesn't win elections. Pro-life is winning elections.
Yeah. And, in some places, like in Kansas, they voted to keep abortion. And people are losing their shit about it, honest to God. And you know what? There are some places that may vote for that. But I think that, I almost think that it's like everybody's scared them into wanting it. Like, people are like, oh no, what's going to happen if I have an ectopic pregnancy and stuff, because there's so much misinformation about what happens if the baby's not viable, if it's hurting the mother's life, if they've successfully made people scared. And I honestly don't think that, but I do think that pro-life is winning. I just think that we need to counter the propaganda with truth. For real.
Right. And not saying, again, the Kansas thing, obviously. So again, it's a states' rights thing and by states to figure it out. But it is very, you're right that it is, in general, pro-life candidates are doing very well. Let's just say that.
Yes. No, they are. They are for real. And I think that people are sick of the status quo. They're sick of the rhinos. They're sick of it. And now's the time. And now's the time to do it start at your local level and move forward, move up, move out. We need to get rid of the people who this is their career. This is not a career. They should not be millionaires. Pelosi's husband should not be insider trading. And we need to start at the bottom and work our way up and get rid of these people. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen in a minute.
Right. And also, just to say another thing, that's one of the great things about, even though not terribly old, but one of the great things about being old fashioned is that you've seen a bit of it before, that a bit of this happened before with Newt Gingrich and having a conservative house under Bill Clinton. And there, I saw, it was Tim Pool the other night, and, it kind of made me want to claw out my eyes. Not that I have anything very much against Tim Pool, but sometimes I'm like, oh, this is just so millennial and cringe right now when they're talking about like, oh, well, we just don't want to elect any old people, into Congress. And it's like, look, it's not the age, it's the principle. And I'm not saying that we don't need new faces and we don't need to clean out all these old rhinos. But with, when Newt Gingrich came in and it was woohoo conservatism, a lot of those people who came in and they got old and they got in politics and they became rhinos, and that they became kind of, squishy over time. That is what happens to most people who you send to Congress and to the Senate. Okay. And that's not saying, oh, well, it always has to be that way. That's saying, keep on them. Make sure if somebody's lovely and conservative and they're brand new and you're like, yeah, you go. And, slap them on the butt and get them out there, but that you still pay attention to what they actually do, not just what they say. That you can, I'm not saying that, oh, you can never get good people, but it's, it's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's, you want good people, you want principled people, but make sure that you're paying attention to what they're actually doing, that they're not just getting you nice sound bites to bring home, that it is that they're really implementing and they're really doing good work. And we have had people who have really done good work. I mean, you said Josh Hawley, but there's Marjorie Taylor Greene and there's other people who have done well.
Yep. And the only thing that we should have as knitters that is squishy is our yarn.
That's right.
So guys, don't forget to check out Chicken Lady. This is up for grabs in the August giveaway, along with a copy of Odyssey Tale by Cody Schlegel. Make sure you comment on this video. And if you can't wait to get some Chicken Lady, if you don't want to risk not being able to get your hands on something, use the code PIK hot as heck 20 for 20% off of yarn in her store. And I've got to run. So thanks guys for joining us. We will see you next week.
All right, see you then. Bye.